fellow diasporian. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and allow me to say that I spent 19 years in diaspora. So I don't know whether there is an alumni of diaspora or I still qualify to be a diaspora. My family still lives outside Kenya, so once in a while I'm still outside. So I do understand, some of the diaspora issues. I also want to say that having spent 19 years out of the country, and I'm sure most of you have got amazing stories about Kenyans out there who are doing amazing stuff. And it made me reflect and think that, first of all, we have the best human capital in the world. That there is no doubt about that. I mean, Kenyans are amazing. That is true. You can clap for yourself. I was in South Africa, and in South Africa, there is even a whole area called Sunning Hill that has been developed by Kenyans. When you go there, I had an office that was on Naivasha Road. There is Nanyuki, there is Kikuyu, all the streets are named after something in Kenya. The roads in Swaziland have been built by a Kenyan contractor. And the list goes on. There's a friend of mine in the US, we call him Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred is in the, I think, Dallas airport. He's one of the guys that have designed probably one of the most complicated and complex those towers that at the airport. And I'm sure there are amazing stories about Kenyans out there who are doing amazing things. Then we come back here. We come back home, and we just find that things are not working. And I used to, when you're sitting on the other side, it's very easy to criticize, right? And I was one of the keyboard critics. Why is there so much traffic? And some of those things, you find that in every roundabout or every intersection, there is a policeman. And the lights are working. Right? And then you go another place and you read that the ratio of policemen to citizen is not very good. So you've got policemen who should be doing their work out there, but we've put them in roundabouts that are working so that they can manage traffic. The light is red, stop. No, you need a policeman to tell you must stop. And so and I hope you get the drift of where I'm heading with this, is that you sometimes wonder, over time, what has happened here is that instead of fixing the problem, we've actually adjusted ourselves so that we can live with that mediocrity. And that is the truth. So instead of fixing the traffic problem, which we know can be fixed, there is a Kenyan guy who designed this high-speed rail in Saudi Arabia. In London, traffic is being managed by a Kenyan. I was involved in building BRT systems in South Africa. So it's not that we don't know about public transport system and they work, but instead of focusing on doing them, we try and manage the problem, and I think we're just celebrating mediocrity. So what do? You instead of, so that you can be in the office in time, you wake up at 4 in the morning so that you can beat traffic, or leave late. Some of us here, you've never seen your spouse standing, because you come you leave in the morning when they're in bed, you come back when they're in bed. On a lighter note. So, and I know that we get very frustrated because where we have come from, and it doesn't mean there are no problems. There are many problems too, where most of you live. But systems tend to work. And so I am a strong believer that change, you see, because here we have accustomed ourselves of working around the problem instead of fixing it. So I still do believe that there is a good conversation we need to have, because I believe for change to happen from internally, it's very difficult. And so it will take a few of you guys in the diaspora to come back here. But I also want to warn you, you can talk all these great things, you've been part of whatever it has worked, it is very difficult to get anything done here. First of all, we have a very noisy democracy. And by the way, I love the noisy democracy. Nothing wrong with the noisy democracy. But sometimes when you look at the papers, sometimes when you watch the news, you might think this country is just about to go to war. But I'd rather the noisy democracy than some of the, in our neighboring countries, there's no democratic space. So, I want to, before I get to the housing part, I love stories. So I told you that I was involved, I'm an investment banker by profession. And I have my chairman of the Affordable Housing Board that I spent, Jerry, you can stand because I'm going to call you a bit later. That's Jerry Simu. He's the chairman of the Affordable Housing Board, also an investment banker. And I'm going somewhere. When I say investment banking, I'll tell you why I'm insisting on it. So I was involved in BRT systems in South Africa. And then I see in 2016, they float a tender here. They're looking for people who can help them in designing BRT. So I come. And so I got involved, and I learned that we had 69 studies on BRT. I was totally convinced that we had the best BRT system in the world, but on paper. A story is told that at the advent of the new constitution, our comrades here at the city of Nairobi, because you see some of the functions were devolved. So transport was devolved, public transport. So we love benchmarking, that is part of government day to day. When I got in there, one day I asked the guys, why are you paying me a per diem to go to South Africa? That is my home. And I was told, we have to pay you because it is a requirement. I said, but I'm going to sleep in my home. So per diem is part of being in government. And please don't bash us. So we love benchmarking. So a group of bureaucrats from the Nairobi County go to Bogota. Bogota is the home of BRT. They have a system, they have built a BRT system that moves 1 million people per direction per hour. In the morning, during peak time, morning and evening. So they go to Bogota, Trans-Milano, they go to study. I've been to Bogota too, so I know how that system works. So they get there, they're excited, and then they have a meeting with the guys, from Trans-Milano, and then they tell them, no, hang on a second. After the presentation, and the guys are really excited and they are raring to go, and they say, why don't you give us the blueprint? So we just take it back to Nairobi and we implement it as it is. Then one of the guys in the room said, no, hang on a second. You guys have it. You have the blueprint. So the comrade in the room says, hey, no. What I meant is now we have a new constitutional dispensation. Maybe Kura guys had come, and it is true, Kura people had gone there to study BRT. We formed another organization called Namata. They had gone there to benchmark, to do BRT. So they said, yes, indeed, there are several Kenyan groups that have come here to study BRT. But that's not what you're talking about. We are saying that you have got the blueprint. So they said, Kwani, this blueprint has a different meaning. And to cut the long story short, they tell them, hang on a second, when we were designing the Trans-Milano BRT system, we also went on benchmarking. And when we asked around the world and which countries have got a public system that works, we were told Nairobi has got a public transport, one of the best that works. They're like, hawana nyinyi, unless there's another Nairobi somewhere. Hiyo Nairobi jam imejaa hivyo. Only to find out that it is actually true. From the 1970s, when you look at the Nairobi Transport Master Plan, from the 1970s, when we had even the Kenya bus service, did you know, maybe when you were young, this is partner KBS. You know, we had a very good public transport system. So they came here to benchmark. And they took some of our blueprints and they went back home and they implemented. So they still gave them. But to date, that was back in 2013. There is still no BRT. And I can tell you, there will be another group that will go to benchmark. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that sometimes we have got to get to a place where we have to get so uncomfortable about things not working, and we have got to push. So when I was appointed first, 2018, so public transport system was put under me. Namata was put under me, and I remember that is when we did the infamous lipstick on Thika Road. You know, you guys, you see that red line. It was very embarrassing. But we actually got the first system going. Then COVID came in, and I believe now we are getting some resources. I have been told that we've gotten some resources to get it done. So, allow me then to get to housing part. I have a presentation that I'm going to make. But before I make that presentation, I want to set the scene on why housing and why housing now. You know, at the height of the Finance Bill, which is the Finance Act of 2023, there was a comrade in Eldoret, I think, if I'm not wrong, that was captured in the news. You know, there was a lot of opposition to the housing bill at the time. And this fellow was captured saying, "Nani hana kwao?" You know, and it became a soundbite, it became a meme. Nani hana kwao? And you guys, I'm sure you can recall, because this thing went viral. You know, I was busy sweating and nowadays I don't sweat a lot, so please. But I still have a handkerchief, so just in case. Sweating a lot trying to explain housing. But for us to be able to understand housing, I just want to take you down memory lane. You know, the conversation of housing didn't start with Hinga. You know, there's some fellow somewhere who told me, you know, Hinga, you've talked about housing so much. When I look at you, you actually yourself, you look like a house. Ni matusi. And back then, when I was very active on Twitter, X, you know, unapiga housing yangu, me, I used to take, and nobody was running my X account, it is me. So when nikiwashinda na arguments, naona ameandika hapo, unfat. Kenyans are very brutal. So nikaambiwa unfat mara mingi, mara tano, nikadecide let me unfat. You can see now I'm a bit trim now. So some of you who are struggling on that department, I can also offer some services for a small fee. So housing didn't start with Hinga. So if you want to understand the history of housing, because sometimes people don't understand why are we solving a systemic problem. And for you to be able to understand how to fix a problem, you must understand how you got there. So we go back to the 1920s. Can you imagine? That's how far back we go, to the 1920s. And in the 1920s, we actually had a government. It was a colonial government. And believe it or not, the colonial government, relax, see my presentation, sijafika hapo. Sitaki uanze kusoma vitu ambavyo siko. I'm just setting the scene. Okay? So the colonial government had a housing policy. But the housing policy of the colonial government was what was called containment. And their policy was to contain black indigenous Kenyans mashambani. They did not want you to come to the urban areas. So the policy of the colonial government was mukae wapi? Mashambani. So between the 1920s to when we got independence, we only did 15,000 houses. That's a long period of time. We only did 15,000 houses during that entire period of time. But they had a housing policy. They had a housing agenda. So comes independence. And we have a post-colonial government that comes in and realizes, hang on a second, these Mzungus are going to leave. And we need workers in the urban areas. We need people to move to the urban areas. So the post-colonial government reverses the containment policy and start to encourage Kenyans to do what? To leave the rural areas and come to the urban areas. They established some laws, and some of them, we forgot to undo them. So, if you, for example, look at our valuation law, you know, the valuation for rating, we're still using a very old law that uses what is called unimproved site valuation, USV, unimproved site valuation, to value property for rating purposes. Now, an improved site valuation, I don't know whether there is any other country that is still using it. So what it means in simple terms, unaona Upper Hill, where P.S. Roslyn ako hapo hivi in a beautiful office, that office there, the World Bank up there, all those people, the rates that they pay to Kanjo ignore the building. And they assume that that place has not been developed. So you are sitting there on the 40th floor, you're getting services, but we charge you based on an improved site valuation. So that thing was put there so that we can encourage people to move to the urban areas. But people move to the urban areas. Now we need to get revenue. So counties today, when we bash them and tell them, oh, own source revenue, how do they collect revenue? And by the way, when I tell you, I don't want to call it mediocrity, but when I tell you that we score many own goals here, can you imagine we are using in Nairobi until 2019, and I know it because I'm the one who did the valuation rating for Nairobi. I assisted them through the World Bank. We were using 1980 values. 1980. That's the value that we're using for collection of rates. So let me tell you what 1980, an acre in Upper Hill in 1980 was worth 40,000 shillings. 40,000. Do you know how much an acre is in Upper Hill now? It has gone over a B. There is someone there who sold, I saw the other day, 1.2 billion for 1 acre in Upper Hill. We're using 40,000. So if you use 40,000, Karen, they're using 25,000 to collect the rates and taxes. So we have a post-colonial government. We establish institutions. We establish National Housing Corporation. We come up with a national housing policy. We come up with a building code. All those beautiful things. Now, I know, PS Science and Technology, when he was here, he spoke about Singapore and Korea. We love those things, and politicians love those stories, especially around election time. We are going to be like Singapore. We are going to be like Korea. You know, Kenya Sijui in the 1960s. Oh, in fact, there's another beautiful story. They say, we even lent money to Malaysia. Did you even know that? I don't know whether it was a grant. That's a new one that I had in the 1960s. So, around the same time, Singapore was fixing their housing. When you look at the housing policy of Singapore, it mirrors Kenyans. So I don't know who benchmarked against who. But then, they moved. And if you look at Singapore 60 years later, 95% of all Singaporeans live in a public house, which are beautiful apartments. And in Kenya, we have got over 1,500 slums. So what went wrong? Fast track. We get to the 1970s. Government sees, whoa, now people are moving into the urban areas in huge numbers. Because, you see, urbanization is equated to high quality of life. When you talk about urbanization out there, right? So, people are moving from the rural areas to the urban areas in search of a high quality of life. But when they come to the urban areas, do they find a high quality of life? No, they don't. Maybe a few, majority don't, and I'm going to give you those numbers. Then I get into, my presentation is very brief. Relax, nitakwambia utaanza kusongesha sana. Amolete hiyo kitu mimi nijisongeshe mwenyewe. So, 1970s, now government start to encourage private sector and tell them, hey, we can't cope with the guys who are coming into the urban areas. Then we come up with policies, site and service. Remember the site and service? That's when we do Dandoras, Dandora site and service. I don't know, some of you maybe are beneficiaries of that. And then we built the biggest housing scheme ever done in Kenya, was done in the 1970s, when some of us were being born, right? We have the Buruburu. Buruburu is built in the 1970s, a partnership between government, housing finance. I think there was Commonwealth Bank. I don't know who else was involved. The UK something. CDC from the UK. So we built, I think it is 5,000 houses, and we built them over 15 years. Okay? Fast track to the 1980s. 1980s, we are still involved in housing, but we do something that we have done recently. We misbehave physically. Okay? Thanks, Jackie. Let me just make sure it is working. Okay. So, it's working. So, we have a fiscal misbehavior. Fiscal, not physical, not fiscal, what we are finance. When you talk about fiscal consolidation, fiscal misbehavior, that's the... So when you have a problem in your economy, like we did in the late 80s, we invite some two friends to come and bail us out. Do you know who those friends are? IMF and World Bank. See, that sounds familiar? So we invited them. These comrades never say no. They come. They come to help you. They will come and help you. As a matter of fact, we are shareholders in World Bank. We are shareholders in IMF. So they are obligated to come and help you. But when they come in with a lot of conditions. Okay? In the 80s, they came up with something which was called structural adjustment. And in the structural adjustment, one of the things that was in that structural adjustment was something which they said, get out of housing as government. You have no business being in housing. So, see, you want cheap money, you can't go to the market to borrow, just like we had around 2022. Sindio. We quit providing housing as government. A big mistake that bites us up to date. Because I'll explain something very important. And if I lose you, please, this part you must understand. Because as I said, it is important to understand why are we solving what we're solving? And why housing now? When there is an economic meltdown, why are you imposing taxes on Kenyans? We look like we're insensitive. So, we are told exit housing. From that point to very recently, National Housing Corporation, which had built very many estates, which were for more working class, they stopped getting any money from government. So government does not pump any more money in housing. But there's something else that is happening that either they ignored or they did not know. One, when you look at the dichotomy of our economy, when you look at the dichotomy of our working force, actually Kenya is one of the most unequal societies. Unequal in the sense that majority, let me actually put it there, 97% of all payslip carrying Kenyans, according to the KNBS data of 2019, 97% of all payslip carrying Kenyans earned less than 150,000. 75% earned 50,000 shillings and below. 75. Listen, I'm not talking about hustlers in the street. That's another story altogether, which I'll tell you shortly. I am talking about someone who has a payslip. And if you have a payslip, it means that you have a chance of going to a bank, okay, and getting some loan to do something, so that you can complement your income. So you can do a side hustle. So, then there is another unique problem that is happening, but we don't know. And that unique problem is the cost of land in Nairobi and our urban areas shoots. There is a study that was done by the Center for Affordable Housing in Africa. It showed recently that Nairobi has overtaken Kampala and Dakar in Senegal to have the most expensive land in the continent of Africa. All right? I hope I haven't lost you. We're still together, right? So, think about it. You have got very expensive land, and you have got people who are earning very little money. What do you think is going to happen? There is a study done by a professor in California that showed, and they've studied a lot of these urban areas, it showed that where you have cities where the cost of land is very high, and actually you don't even need that professor to do that study. I mean, it's common sense. When you have got very high cost of land and very low wages, what do? You push people out from the urban core. Because they can't afford a house in Kilimani, they can't afford a house in your major urban areas. So we start to push people out. So where do you think they will go? Where do you think they will go? You know, some people tell me, wewe Hinga, why don't you go sijui huko Athi River? There is thousands of acres. Actually, when I became PS, the first project that I saw we were undertaking was a slum upgrading, what we call a slum upgrading project in Mavoko, deep Mavoko. Can you imagine? We saying that we're going to move Kibera from where it is and we move it to Mavoko. So we need to understand how do slums come up, because the people who live in the slums are not lazy people. They're not people who came from the rural areas just to come and look at skyscrapers and then whatever. No. They're actually blue-collar workers. Majority of the people who live in the slums are workers. So, if they are workers and they're living in the slum, there is a problem. And what is that problem? The problem is they simply can't afford the houses, proper houses that are being put up. But they also need to be closer to where they work. So taking them to Mavoko, Athi River, sijui yuko Makueni, and sijui where, is not a solution. Because, si remember ile story nilianza ya BRT. So if it takes you 2.5 hours, kutoka hapa hivi Mwiki, kuja town. So if you go and take the people to Uko Mavoko or Athi River, how long are they going to take? See, they will be waking up at midnight to be at work. And then the cost of transport. So we don't have a reliable public transport system. So the system is pushing them out. It's pushing them out. Get out of the urban core. We don't have a complementary public transport system that can help them. So what do? They go and occupy any land that is available closer to where they work. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to go and study how slums are formed. Simply, that's how they get formed. I did a study because one of my jobs is to eradicate slums. That's why you see I upgrade very fast. I was very young and black when I joined, black hair. I didn't have a single white hair. No, it's majority. It's because when I did a census of all our informal settlements, listen to this, that's 2019. I have not even done another one. And trust me, there have been more slums formed since 2019. I had 1,419 informal settlements in Kenya. When you look at our studies, it shows 70% of our urban population lives where? In the slums. So, we can have a difference of opinion as to how to solve the problem. And that I agree. Let's have as many ideas how to solve the problem. But we cannot hide from the fact that we have a problem. A country of 50 million people, we only have 30,000 mortgages, bank finance mortgages. Can you imagine if it was an exam? 30,000 over 50 million. What percentage is that? There will be so many 0.0000 before you get to the percent. Simply, if it is a teacher, they'll say you never showed up. So you've not showed up. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the reason why. And by the way, let me tell you, the do nothing is worse. The do nothing is worse. This presentation is a bridge, but there is a few slides I do, and I'll share them with the PA so that we can share with you. And I said it's important that we understand where we are coming from, so that don't look at these guys and these guys are crazy, man. Nani hana kwao? Let me tell you, I answer that thing of nani hana kwao. Now, life in the informal settlement, and I know because I was born in one. Me, I grew up in a slum, in Nakuru. I was born in Bondeni, nikaenda kuishi kwa Ronda. So I know what it is that goes on in those slums. But listen to me. In the informal settlements, you pay to use a toilet. Pay. Can you imagine? You know, when you talk to those guys, they tell you, you know, it sounds funny, but it's actually very sad. Meal times, when the kids are eating, you as a parent, you're worried about what is going to happen next. Because at wakishiba, there is a cost. Sounds funny, but that is what is happening. They pay to use a toilet. And that one toilet is shared amongst hundreds of people. In that place there is no dignity whatsoever. There is no security. So at night, when you want to use a toilet, na ukitoka tu hivi nje unachapwa ngeta. So what do? You use something which is called flying toilets. Juala. You know? Now, we are talking about majority of the urban population. That is how they are living. So nani hana kwao, is that the way people should live? So let's disagree, and I'm happy for us to disagree on how to solve the problem, but we cannot disagree that we have a problem and we have to solve it. And let me tell you, the do nothing is very dangerous. Because, listen to this, we have one of the highest urbanization rates in the world. About 4.8%. Do you know what 4.8 translates to? 500,000 Kenyans are moving to urban areas every year. Now, when they come to the urban areas, what do they find? Is there a place to live? No. So where do you think next year the 500,000 are going to live? Are we together? They're going to live in a slum. That's why your own house help, your own drivers, your own gardeners, go ask them where they live. Sometimes we don't care, we just pay them. Where could you take care of my child? So whatever is happening in our informal settlement is something which is called the penalty of poverty. You are poor, and then life just decides to character develop you and punishes you for being poor. Let me tell you what that is. So you pay to use a toilet. You don't pay to use a toilet. When you get to your home, you even have like 3, 4. Sijui mpaka mmoja mnaita cloakroom. Singine ni ensuite. Hata huko nje mko na choo. You can just decide to use 5 in a day. Other people pay to use a toilet. Number 2, because slums, and slums are very complicated. Let me tell you, I know it. Slums are complicated because slums are either on 2, whatever we call land settlements. A slum can be on land that belongs to government, but majority of the slums are on private land. So, ile ya serikali, maybe you can say, let's provide services, we build roads for them, we give them water. Now, can you imagine a government having to go and build roads in a slum that is owned by a private sector? What message are you passing? No, it's okay. Just go occupy any private land. Tutakuja tutawapatia maji, tutawapatia barabara. Now, because of that complexity, you find that Kanjo, there is no Kanjo water in those shacks. There is none. But they need water, right? So who gives them water? They are called water barons. Now, how much do these people pay for water? And this is what I'm calling the penalty of poverty. While we, pay tap water, we pay to the Kanjo, they pay 172% more than you and I pay. So these are not lazy people. These are people who are earning a living, and it is very little money, but they have to pay 172% more for water than you and I. For electricity, because electricity is not connected by KPLC. Hello? It's not KPLC that has connected, but they have power. So how do you think they get power? It's illegal connections. Those illegal connections, they charge them up to 140% more. And it is take it or leave it. So you're poor, you have to pay 172% more for water, 140% more for electricity, and you pay to use a toilet. And the rents, by the way, we calculated the best, nyinyi ni my investors, I hope hakuna mtu ameinvest hapa ni slumlord, okay? Because the best returns on rental yields are actually in the slums. They're way better than Muthaiga, they're better than Karen, they're better than Lavington. And guess what? Those slumlords don't pay taxes either, because there's no formal income. So, I hope I've carried you along so that now I can tell you why we are doing what we're doing. So, we have a problem. We can't bury our heads in the sand, we have to fix it. So, how are we fixing it? Now, to fix a systemic problem, remember I told you about investment banking. To fix a systemic problem, you must throw money at it. There's no two ways about it. You have to throw money at the problem. Now, government does not have money outside the taxes, and the shortfall is in there. Does not have outside the taxes, the shortfall is what? Debt. Okay? So, when we were asked to come up with this program, okay, we decided to set up a housing fund. And we said that countries, and we did a lot of benchmarking, and by the way, go to bomayangu.go.ke. We have uploaded all those things. We have, from countries that solved, some countries that failed, like Mexico. Mexico were on a program like ours, and they built hundreds, if not millions, of houses. But they forgot to do one or two things. They forgot to put infrastructure. So there were tenders very quickly for putting up the structures. Alafu, pesa ikaisha, infrastructure iko wako. So when you go to Mexico, the housing project is occupied by anybody who doesn't want light, wakora, drug lords, nani, wanaishi huko. So we also had to learn from the countries that tried, but they failed. Okay? So, I know I don't have a lot of time, so we have a program. Now, if you, because najua wengi wenyu mnapenda kusoma, so even maybe on your flight back, I'll ask PS, I'll again forward to her a study. Please read it. If you want to be a commentator on housing, I just want to ask you to read this one study. It is called Unaffordable and Unavailable. Okay? You can go download it, it's available there. Okay? Unaffordable and unavailable. But if you can't, I'll give it to Rosa, she'll send it to you. Now, this unaffordable and unavailable was done by the World Bank. Okay, and the magic handkerchief comes out. By the way, there are some guys from Capital FM who decided to give me, they said they were special handkerchiefs. So, in this study, it shows that the cheapest house that had been built in Nairobi by the year 2017, the average cost was 11 million. Don't read here, it is not there. Yet I can see most of you are fixated. They are trying to look where it is. It was 11 million. Okay, remember I told you I'm a banker, so I want to take you through some banking classes, very basic. So 11 million shillings. Now, you guys, I believe you have mortgages where you come from, right? Okay? If you take 11 million shillings and you go to a bank to finance you, what interest rate do you think they're going to give you? Here in Kenya, the interest rates are about 15, if you're lucky. Okay? But in the high interest regime, they went all the way to 20. They've come down a bit. So let's use 15. What tenure do you think they're going to give you to pay? The average tenure they were giving was 7.5 years here. 7.5, double digit. So an 11 million house, 11 million at 15%, even if we stretch the period to 15 years, do you know how much are the repayments per month? Anyone? Quick? It is 154,000 shillings a month. Now, remember the statistics I told you. How many Kenyans earn 150,000 and above? 3%. So if an average house in Nairobi was 11 million, and then you go to a bank, how much do you think they're going to, how many people can afford? Very few. And because even the ones that are earning at 150, they can't spend all their money on a house. So when you hear about 30,000, in fact, we have one of the worst ratios of mortgage to GDP in the world. 30,000 out of 50 million Kenyans. So that is unaffordable and unavailable. So in that study, okay, it tells us that to solve the housing problem, you must address, there were about 8 problems that you need to address. But 4 of them, they say these 4 are a must. What are the 4? 1, land. Now remember, I told you that land in Nairobi is now the most expensive. So how do you have the most expensive land and affordability in the same sentence? Ain't gonna happen. So one of the things that government has done as an intervention, and now I'm talking to you because nyinyi ni watu sharp, mtajua mujipange. Government housing program has decided for us to achieve affordability, we will have to look for government land, okay? And the cost of that land, government absorbs and passes that unit to you at 0 cost. Pigeni makofi hata kama okay? I know some people, there is a whole debate, why are you converting public land? My friend, if you do not have a means of controlling the cost of land, forget about the word affordability. Number 1. Number 2, cost of construction. Our cost of construction is very high. And part of the reason why the cost of construction, there are things we cannot control, there are some that we are trying to control. One of them, which we have a very big debate with my peers for energy, is the cost of power. Cost of power is ridiculously high in Kenya. That means the input, cement and all those things that are being made, we can't compare. Our cement made here, the only thing ni lori unaingiza hapa kutoka hapa Simba iko hapa Athi River kuleta site hapa Mukuru is more expensive than cement ambayo imetoka Egypt, inaingia kwa meli, sijui inapigana huko, sijui na mabombs ya Houthis, inapita huko kona, inakuja ina land hapa hivi, wanasumbuliwa hapo KPA hapo, sijui nani anaitisha bribe, inawekwa kwa SGR, ina sijui na kwama sijui siku ngapi, ina all that kizungumkuti. Their cement is cheaper than ours. Okay? All right? Fact. So, without a plan on the cost of input that make housing, affordability cannot be achieved. So what did government do? Okay, kwa sababu watu wengi tu wanafikiria tu housing levy. My friend, before we go to the housing levy, we had done quite a bit. So we have 0 rated, and this is important for you guys in the diaspora. Because when you hear that there is a unit being sold for 3 million, a 3-bedroom house, we are selling it for 3 million. Hakuna uchawi? No, there is no uchawi there. Financial engineering or re-engineering. Tumefanya ukarabati huko hivi. So one of the things that we have had to do, which we control as government, is what? Taxes. So we went and 0 rated the input tax. VAT, now I hope I don't confuse you, listen to this. VAT in our industry is a cost. How is it a cost? For those of you who understand VAT, you have got what is called input tax and output. Sindio? So mnajua input na output. All right? Then the amount you pay to KRA is the difference between output and input. Then you apply a percentage, the 16%. Umeelewa hiyo? Okay? In our sector, there is no output. When you sell the house, there is no VAT. So what does that mean? Where there is no output, you cannot deduct input. So all the cost of inputs goes straight to the buyer. There is no offsetting. Umeelewa hiyo kizungu? Okay, sawa. Wenye hawajaelewa ndawaeleza baadaye. So VAT cost is a real cost. So government says, I know this is revenue and we need a lot of revenue. But in order to make housing affordable for an ordinary Kenyan, we are going to forego the VAT taxes. So there is no VAT in the affordable housing unit. Remember, a couple of things I want you to put at the back of your head, and I'll bring it all together. And then I have some nice photos for you, so it's not all talk. I have an album. So, namsmile tafadhali. I'm just trying to, unajua hii housing levy maneno watu wanakuwa wamenikasirikia ngoja hapo. Okay? So please smile kidogo ili nikuwe encouraged. So there is no input. So we as government forgo the revenue and we give you the, then we go and take away NCA charges, tunaondoa NCA. Now for you to get a house, now the house is built. For you to be a homeowner, there's something which is called stamp duties. Si nyinyi mnanuaga manyumba? Si lazima ulipe stamp duty. Na unajua stamp duty imekuwa doubled. Did you know that? Nyinyi ni watu wa kujenga, msiseme hivyo. Si hakuna mtu KRA hawako hapa. So stamp duties now is how much? 4%. It was 2. Then we said, but majority of Kenyans, can you imagine a 3 million house? What is 2% of 3 million? Watu wa hesabu. So ni 60,000. 60. Sahi ni 120. So before you can be a homeowner, you must have 120,000. And then we have, so many other closing costs, lawyer, nani, maneno mingi huko. Rosa ye is a lawyer, she'll tell you. Conveyancing, hizo maneno zote lazima mlipe. So the cost of owning a home in itself is very high. Okay, so we decided we are going to, for any first-time homeowner, there is no stamp duty. And no, there were many other things that we did to bring down the cost of construction. Then number 3 thing, okay, is the cost of processes. And that one we still haven't cracked it. But to get a title, even me as a PS, when I got my own house, when I tried to get a title, my friend, ilikuwa ni kizungu. Hapa na pale unazungushwa, sijui there's a green card, sijui there is what, sijui ilipotea, sijui imedisappear, file imeenda wapi, kizungu. Sio ni kizungu mmezoea hiyo? And I can see most of you now it's resonating. So now we have established a special registry. Because we've said, after building all these houses, if we can't fix titling, there is no way, even if it's a government house you're going to buy, kama haina title, si ndio hivyo? So we are sorting out for you the titling. Okay? And other unnecessary processes. To get, si nyinyi ni wajenzi, si mmejenga nyumba ya baba na mama hapa hivi, ushago. To get an approval from Kanjo. It's either you bribe, and even if it is madness. So, we have called counties, we have cut a deal. I have cut a deal where, first of all, they have done away with the cost. So in the affordable housing unit, when you buy, the cost of approvals is 0. Nimejaribu, I've negotiated a good deal for you guys. Okay? So, then lastly, is financing. Cost of financing. Cost of financing was prohibitive. And it is prohibitive on 2 sides. Now remember, I told you about the 11 million. Okay, so keep 11 million at the back of your head. Keep 154,000 at the back of your head. Okay? We have to find out, how do you bring the 11 million down to 3 million? Because when we did our reverse re-engineering hapo hivi, we felt that the 3 million is like a sweet spot for a 3-bedroom unit. So how do you do that? So land cost 0. A lot of taxes hapo 0. Uko kanjo nini 0. Stamp duties 0. Now that house, we managed to get it now at 3 million. From 11 million to 3. Si uchawi ni Mungu alitusaidia, lakini sasa tuko 3 million. Na hiyo 3 million, by the way, it is real. Okay? Now, 3 million, work with me, 3 million, even if I now asked you, go to the banks and get a loan for a 3 million house, do you know how much you will pay? Using the same numbers that we use for the 11 million. Do you know how much you will pay? 42,000 shillings per month. So again, go back to the numbers I gave you. If 75% of Kenyans earn less than 50,000, and those are pay slip guys, majority of hustlers can't even, they are called unbankable. Ukienda kwa bango unaambiwa wewe ni unbankable. Yeah, that's what they're called. Tunaita unbankable. So wewe who is bankable, but your salary is 50K. Can you be able to afford it? No, you can't. That's why we came up with financing for end user. So think about it. We have brought down the cost from 11 average to 3. But 3, you still have to go to a bank. It is still prohibitive. So we have to come up with a financing mechanism. And there are two things. If you don't control any of these two issues, there is no way you can be able to do anything about the cost of financing. Interest rate and tenure. In Kenya, as I told you, the average, it is there in that study that I told you, you go read that one, download that one, and affordable and available. 7.5 years. So we ask ourselves, how do we get long-term tenure money? 30 years. Those of you who are in the US, you know that is where they are, 30 years. How do you get a 30-year mortgage? There's absolutely no bank that is going to give you 30 years. Take it to the bank. I know it sounds like a poetry. I'm not a poet, even though it rhymes. Okay? So, you have got to introduce another mechanism. Number 2, we needed, munisikize tafadhali, fixed interest rate, not variable, fixed. Most of you that have got variable rates, when the rates went up to 20%, what happened to your cost of your mortgage? Do you know how many people were foreclosed? Do you know when you go to the banks and you look at something which is called NPL, non-performing loan book, majority of it was in the real estate? Am I speaking to people who have experienced this? Okay, now a few, they're nodding. Okay? And probably you know 1 or 2 people that lost their homes. So in our affordable housing program, the interest rate is fixed. Meaning that even if the interest rates go to 20, 5 years from now, your interest rate is, so you can determine from day 1, this is how much I'm paying, unajipanga. Number 2, we said it has got to be single digit. It has to be single digit. And we provided a single digit mortgage. And this is now where the magic comes in. We said, hustlers, we said they can only afford 3%. Because you know, if President Ruto had told me, wewe Hinga, jenga nyumba is affordable, lakini first of all, let's deal with the people who can afford first. It would have been an easier problem. I was given a task and I told, fix for everybody. Fix for everybody. So, the guys who are in the informal, guys who are juakali huko inje, they can only afford 3%. Majority of the working class, we calculated they can afford 6%. And you and I, who are a bit privileged, 9%. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our plan. Today, and by the way, simuliona tulipeleka watu Mukuru. Kwani hawa watu mnadhani tuliwapatia nyumba ya free? No, but we finance them at 3% fixed. This is si hekaya za Abunwasi. This is real. Those of you who are still listening to all the haters and noisemakers huko nje, it is real. It is happening. 3% fixed for 30 years. So you know what that means? Now, listen to this. I talked about 3 million. 3 million is the most expensive unit for the affordable category. The cheapest unit, hiyo studio uliona pale hivi Mukuru, I'm sure mlikuwa mnafuata kwa mtandao, is 640,000 shillings. 640k. Nasikizeni, PS Tanui yuko hapa hivi atawaambia kidogo. PS Tanui here akanisaidia tukaweka high speed internet pale Mukuru. Those guys have got what is called FTTH, fiber to the home. Nani hustler. When we were launching and we tested, those guys had 78 megabits a second. Mimi kwa male mimi naishi hata siwezi pata 10. Those guys are getting Tanui na spoil. Lakini anasema they need internet more kwa sababu pia ana ile kazi ya majuu huko wanataka waingie kwenye mtandao. They have got piped gas. Piped. Mimi hata sina piped gas. Because these homes, by the way, let me just disabuse something. Affordable is not synonymous to poor quality. And by the way, mulisikia about the debate that has been there about, oh, should we have schools? Should we have whatever? Let me tell you something. The Constitution talks about adequate housing. When you go to Article 43, it talks about adequate. And there is nowhere else adequate is defined. Adequate is defined by the UN. They have a policy which is called adequate housing. And you know, they define adequate housing. They said a house is not about 4 walls and a roof. Because otherwise that comrade in Eldoret is right. Nani hana kwao. Even that shack that has no toilet, then it is a house. But it is not a house. The Constitution talks about adequate. So pale Mukuru ukienda, skiza, what we have given them is a lifestyle. Today I'm selling, and I hope watu ya boma yangu wako hapa hivi wata register. So I'm a salesman today, I'm not a PS. So listen to this. We have given you a house, a studio unit for 640k. You've told us deposit is a barrier. We have zero rated the deposit for you. That house has high-speed internet thanks to Tanui here. That house has piped gas which is prepaid. So kama uko na shilingi 10 na unataka kupika chakula, unaweka shilingi 10 unapika, unangojea Mungu. Mnaendelea. Huku kwingine hakuna gas unaweza nunua huko nje ya shilingi 10. Ukweli ama uongo? Okay? Piped. Na tukawapatia mpaka kuka hapo hivi meko, tu bana hapo. These guys don't let me tell you, we are transforming lives. And they have an ECD right outside, ECD. So kama uko na mtoto unapeleka yeye hapo. They're going to have a primary school, they're going to have a JSS, they're going to have a secondary school hapo. They have a strip mall inside there. They have a fire station. They have a mini basketball court. They have pocket parks. They have CCTV camera. We are saying, how do you give people a high quality of life and they don't have to break the bank? That is really what this housing is all about. Okay? And for that, listen to this. This is important. So if you miss everything, usisahau hii. Ule mtu ambaye tumepatia hiyo nyumba today, they are paying the same amount of money for a shack. Okay, so let me wrap up and say that that person that has got that studio unit is paying 2,800 shillings per month. Then they are paying a service charge of, is it 1,000 shillings? And they are paying 200 shillings for insurance, for life insurance, because they have become homeowners. Umesikia hiyo? So watu hesabu 28, 1,200, 4K. That is what they were paying for a shack. And now they are paying for that house to own. And I can tell you, in the affordable housing, we have got similar package. For a 1 bedroom, you pay 5,000. 2 bedroom, you pay 10,000. 3 bedroom, ile nimekwambia, ukienda kwa banku unalipa 42, we are giving it for 15,000. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the affordable housing program. Long and short of it. In between huko, kuna miujiza ingine tumefanya huko. Milango tunatengeneza through jua kali. Dirisha tunatengeneza na jua kali. Because Kenyans know how to make doors. We know how to make windows. But in between, mtu ya jua kali na the buyer of the door, there are many brokers who make more money than the guy who makes that door. So we have cut out all the middlemen, tunaenda directly to the jua kali. Listen to this. Thanks to the levy that people are paying, and we respect the people who are paying the levy, 11 billion shillings so far ring-fenced to jua kali artisans. Now, guess what? Out of that 11 billion, majority of them are the homeowners. Hii kitu, unaelewa hiyo kizungu? Haya, wacha nionyeshe album kwa sababu sasa nimechelewa kabisa. I will give you, unaona pale 11 billion, ndio hiyo iko hapo, utaiona iko hapo hivi. So, a quick summary. So, because of the housing levy, we have created over 250,000 jobs. We are targeting 1 million. We are right there. We have 11 billion shillings that has gone to the jua kali. We have 2,379 units which are completed. I was presenting to Parliament yesterday, on Saturday. It was 3,000. So I think there's another 1,000 imeongezwa hapo juu. So sijui ni kwa nini wameweka 2,700. Jackie, you're behind kidogo. 4,800 units zimemalizika. Hizo tusha advertise. Kwa hivyo tafadhali muingie huko mnyakue. 148,000 units are under construction. We have got 346,000. You know, our students, they live in slums. So I don't have time to go through that. We have got 346 for institutional housing, including military, police. Our police za zingine mnakutana nao wamekasirika huko. My friend, huyu jamaa amelala kwa a tin shack. So wale ukiona amekasirika huko, ni venye amelala huko. Sijui, anyway, sorry, as police it should be told another day. 177,000 beds for students. Okay, Jackie kitu imeanza kukataa. Haya ndio hiyo. That is a breakdown of the 148,000. I'm not going to get in there. Now, I will come back to this because in 1 minute I'll finish with that. So I just want to show you the nice part. I want to show you some photo albums. Huku ni Nakuru, watu wanaishi huko already. Hii ni our favorite, Mukuru. Hii ndio 1080. Unaona hapo inakaa kama London hapo hivi, sijui ama ni Singapore. Ndio hiyo bado Mukuru. Tuko na picha mingi za Mukuru. Hapa ni Homa Bay. Homa Bay pia tulipeana, uliona kulikuwa na mama samaki anaishi huko. Hii ndio next tunaenda watu wa Masaku. Huyu chairman wangu wa affordable housing ametoka huko. Nimemwambia ambie watu wao tuko tayari, Machakos is finished. Huko karibu Mabera, huko ni karibu na border. Hiyo ni Embu, Geshogo, Kirinyaga, Nyanyuki, Warufaga, inatoka Warufaga, Elbagon. Kakamega, by the way, hii ya Kakamega is next to a golf course na Milimani. Unajua Milimani is always high end. Unajua hivyo? And all those prices I've told you, from 3,800 huko 4,000 all the way to 15,000. All our houses are the same, the prices. Okay, so now, let me come back then to you as diaspora. I won't finish. Nisimalize na hii ambayo inakaa haijamalizika itakaa mbaya. Wacha niwamalizie wacha nibakishe ya Mukuru ibaki hapo hivyo ni mzuri. So, ladies and gentlemen. Sio ni mzuri hapo hivi. Na unaona Islam huko mbali kidogo. Okay. So, all this we've been able to do because we found a funding mechanism. That was a housing levy. You have helped us to address, because we are financing you. The only way I can finance you at 3%, at 6%, and at 9% is because tumejumuisha pesa. Okay? And we're able to give it to you at that rate. The only reason that we have been able to give you 30 years is because you have given us the housing levy. That is the importance of the housing levy. Now, diaspora, nisikizeni. This sounds like an altar call, but now listen to this. One, we know your importance in this country in terms of remittances and other skills and so on and so forth. But on the remittances side, I have been told, and I read somewhere, and you can confirm if I'm wrong, I think 60% of all your remittances are towards a house somewhere. Either unajenga nyumba huko, unajaribu kujengea your parents, and so on and so forth. We've also had harrowing stories about when umekoniwa na your relative, ulimtumia, akakutumia picha kama ile, akamwambia unaona venye nimejenga, ukikuja hapa hivi kumbe ni picha ya neighbor, alipiga. We have had that. So, we want to have a deliberate engagement with yourselves. Okay? One, we are discussed with the PS, and she's one of the best things that has happened to this government. I can tell you that for free. You know? Passionate and understands the matters diaspora. So, and she's a tough negotiator. So, she's come and said, can you create a quota in all these schemes for my diaspora people? So I've asked the board to create a quota for you, okay? So you will get the first right of refusal to buy those homes, okay? Okay, that's number one. And by the way, if you have cash and whatever it is, happy days, we will still give it to you. If you still want financing, even as a diaspora, we will finance you. Okay, so please, hiyo ya 3, 6, hatuna ati wewe ni diaspora uko na pesa mingi tunakucharge 22, hapana. 3, 6, 9. Okay? Number 2. We have also had, because maybe you don't want your parents to live in these apartments. Okay? And a lot of you still believe you want to jenga nyumba huko Geshagi. I've asked my chairman here of the Affordable Housing Board and the Affordable Housing Board to think through, because what we have, I have 39 consulting firms, architects, engineers, the whole shebang. We have it. 2, we have got planners, valuers, surveyors, consultants that we have onboarded. I don't know how many, but we have many of them. Okay? Number 3, we have got a whole bunch of contractors that we have got here. I have asked the chairman of the board to think of a product that we can be able to get into partnership with you. If you still want to go and build Uko Geshagi, and because you're sending money to either a relative or whatever, and you're not sure that money is going to go to that mjengo, I've asked we see whether we can partner with you as diaspora, and we become like your construction managers. Okay? Number 3, before the end of this year, we are going to start on the first retirement village. Because hata mkijenga hizo nyumba huko Geshagi and your brothers and sisters have left, you're still leaving your folks huko, ukipatikana shida kidogo. So we are building retirement villages. And we are going to have the first one before the end of this year. Okay? And they are going to be built for purpose. Okay? Because I know some of you know, I've lived in a place where there are retirement villages. It is high quality, you know, for the aging. There is even oxygen, whatever, in the house. They have got recreational centers and whatever it is, so that we prolong their lives, because as long as the parents they don't have worries, they are closer to the nurses and the doctors and so on and so forth. So we are building one, okay? Now this one, I have asked the chairman, okay, to kindly work with you, work with the diaspora, because we want to create it as an investment. I want you to co-invest together with the fund, okay? So we will float, and by the way, let me tell you, your money will never get lost with Gava. We will never lose your money. That we can guarantee you, okay? So let's work with the chairman. We create the first retirement village. You can invest as an investment to get a return, because those ones I can tell you they're going to give you very nice returns. Or the return can be a unit. You get a unit or 2 for your folks. Na tunaendelea na maisha namna hiyo. Lastly, we are going out to the market. Despite we have collected about 120 billion, okay, since we started this program. And I can tell you, we have taken care of your money. Okay? All these projects that you're seeing ongoing, we have used your money well. But our target is 200,000 a year. At an average of 2 million, that's almost 400 billion. It means we are going to go to the market to raise money. Now, when we go to the market, either later this year or early next year, you guys have been talking about a diaspora bond, sijui since when, mpaka now ni kizungu tu hapo, si ndio? I want to ask the chairman here to kindly work with the diaspora. We see whether we can do a bond that you guys can subscribe to, okay? And we can use the fund either to guarantee, okay, your return, okay, so that it is successful. Because I believe if we get the first one right, all the others we are going to get them right. We have built this program with you in mind. We have built this program with Kenyans in mind. And I believe, I'm a strong believer. You know, we've gone through a lot of body blows for this program. But I believe that the storm is almost over. You know, when real people start occupying these houses, when you become a beneficiary, I believe if there is one program that Kenyans will protect, is this housing program. We will do away with our slums. We will have dignity for our people. you know? And for that little sacrifice that you're making, I want to ask you, even if you have your own home, kindly buy a house for your house help. That person took care of your children. Just buy a house for your driver, or give them a deposit at least, and I will give them the balance. Let's partner together. Let's change this country. I believe that we are, years from now, people will look back and they say, when did this country turn its page? And they will look back to this day. So thank you so much for listening to me. God bless you. Please don't see pain when you see my face. We are trying our very best. Now I know because time is really gone, I want to give it back to Rosa, and maybe there is one or two questions. God bless you. Thank you so much.